Let me ask a different question. What do you think this means for teachers? I lost my thought where we're going to go with this. Advertising man, Mr. Peter back here refers to as the old age home.
Peter, welcome back.
David, welcome back. Good afternoon.
Yeah, welcome back to Call Me Data. And
another edition.
We are having the privilege of actually recording this in a proper studio this time.
I know. I tell you, this is fairly addictive. I think this is something we have to make a habit of.
Yeah.
I love this. So much better than doing it in our offices.
Or freezing cold on my back porch upstate.
Or as our wonderful advertising man, Mr. Peter back here refers to as the old age home.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. He went there.
He gave us the grief, but
so we're at Podcast Central on the Lower East Side in Manhattan. Thank you guys for having us. Yes. And what do we have to talk about today?
Well, I think today we got a bit of a mishmash.
Good.
We'll focus a little bit, but you know what, a little bit different. I think we're going to go back to grounding things back in reality a little bit, because I think you and I go off on the deep philosophical bend a little too often.
Yes.
So,
all right, so we're going to keep it real.
We're going to try to keep this one a little bit real.
All right. I think we can do that.
We'll start off with a little blurb about something we picked up this week that we thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of go off on the, some more highly relevant things.
Speaking of keeping it real, I guess you talked to someone earlier this week that had it very real or very something, had some real strong opinions about it.
Yeah, right? It was interesting, actually. I think, we obviously, you and I speak to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, I think living in this world of artificial intelligence and data, you kind of get a little bit absorbed, what's going on in the rest of the world. And I think it's always important to speak to those that are maybe not quite as embedded as you and I are.
You mean not everyone thinks like we do all day?
But I thought everybody did.
Yeah, okay.
Well, they should at least. He had a perspective that I thought was very different, which was, and it was kind of interesting how it was phrased to me, like, what is different about this than the stuff that's been going on for the past 20 years, which I was honestly a little bit struck by, a little taken aback by. I'm like, wait a second. I didn't really think I'd have to answer a question like that. But I think what it illustrates is there is a lot of individuals or a large number of companies or senior leaders out there who don't really fully understand what the capabilities are.
Right. And to be fair, I think it actually, when you first told me about this, I was like, well, that's a funny question to ask. But as I think more about it, I get the point, because we're a little bit like the boy who cried wolf, we being the technology industry, right?
Absolutely.
Like, how many times in the last 20 or 30 years have you heard this is going to change everything, right? Relational databases are going to change everything. I think I heard that in 1990.
Oh, yeah.
Y2K is going to change everything.
Everything's going to change everything.
BI is going to change everything.
Yes.
APIs are going to change everything, right?
And I think you and I have been part of every single one of these hype cycles over and over and over again.
Yep.
But I will say, look, in fairness, those change things not nearly as fast, but there's change, and that was, to me, all incremental change.
Yeah.
This is profound change. And I don't think everybody fully grasps that quite yet. And I think partly that's the fault of the technology industry and how they've approached to putting OpenAI or ChatGPT, I keep going back to ChatGPT, or some of these other products out there into the marketplace, into the hands of these companies. And it's almost like a drug. We're going to get you hooked on these products, but you really don't kind of know what they're going to do for you at the end of the day. You're not fully up to speed on AI. It's more than ChatGPT. And that's what I started to explaining, that this goes far deeper than some of these traditional tools have gone in the past. I'm like, yes, some of that's relevant from 20 years ago, data engineering and stuff like that, but it's far more relevant in this marketplace today than it's ever been. And it's far more foundational than it was in the past.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point about a lot of these previous trends or new developments in technology have been somewhat evolutionary, where I still feel like AI might be revolutionary, or at least our current AI moment. And I say might be because we are at such an early phase of where I think we'll be compared to 5 years from now.
I know.
And the industry really has been the boy that cried wolf, because we do keep saying this changes everything, and then it changes a little bit. But I think this is different.
I think it's different too. And I think what's really different about this, there's a lot of things that are clearly very different. It's the speed at which this is happening. Those other things happen. APIs, great. That didn't affect anybody except for IT. A new phone, well, the iPhone obviously had big implications, but it took a long time.
Right. Right. People forget that we had an iPhone for several years before there was even an app store, right?
Right.
My first iPhone, I got it when it first came out in 2007, and
Right.
it did what it said on the box and nothing more.
And nothing else. And it was designed as a closed ecosystem originally.
Right.
Steve Jobs didn't want anybody to be able to deploy applications other than Apple on that phone until he was convinced otherwise that was a bad idea.
Right. Right. The other interesting thing about AI is it's happening fast, and it's happening in public, right?
Right.
It's happening right in front of us in a much more visible way. The average citizen of the world really wasn't impacted directly by APIs, for example.
No,
right?
not at all. Right.
How many people even knew what an API was?
Most technologists, I don't think, knew what an API was. But anyway.
Everybody between the age of 7 and 80 or 90
I know.
is aware of at least some of what's happening in AI, and you can't.
Right.
It's populated, it's penetrated the popular press. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere
It's
now.
unfolding right in front of our eyes, and everyone sees it.
See, and that you bring up all these points, which I agree are 100% valid, and yet I speak to somebody who goes, "Well, what's different?" And I find myself in a conundrum of trying to explain, "What do you mean? How do you not know what's different?" But it's a fair question, though, and I mean, it's not. I'm not saying in a negative way.
Yeah,
it's a legitimately fair question. Like from a deployment standpoint for an organization, how is it different? And I think that was really the crux of the question. Like Peter Ton, why is this different than previous technologies that we've deployed? And it was a fair question because he was looking at it from a technologist, CIO standpoint,
right?
Not the business focus, and that's what I kind of look back towards.
And to be fair, also like things in a lot of companies aren't yet different.
Right.
We can see where it's going. We see the tremendous potential.
Right.
And something we talk about a lot is it's changing so rapidly that you could sit back and wait for the dust to settle and wait for it to be clear where AI is going to go and how it's going to benefit your company. But if you do that, you're also at real risk of being behind the curve, of being a laggard.
I agree.
Giving your competitors space to learn themselves and eat your lunch.
And there's always innovators out there, and you never see them until you see them. And then when you see them, very often it's too late, because you can't adjust anymore.
Right.
And innovation's happening behind.
Oh, look at the pretty kitty. Oh my God, that's a jaguar.
Exactly.
Right?
All of a sudden it's like, whoa, my life is different. My business is different. The people I never thought I'd have to deal with are now taking over my business.
Right.
Look, there's been many examples in business for over the decades. Things sometimes happen very fast without you realizing it. And this is happening extraordinarily fast by small players willing to upend industries in ways that, a big player never would have seen coming before.
Right.
And let's face it, big players aren't exactly innovative, and they're very good at protecting the moat. They're not very good at looking at challenges to their position in the marketplace. And they, look at Kodak, perfect example. Other companies is littered, BlackBerry, all over the place. Companies who were like, we got this great technology, nobody's going to take us over. And then in a blink of an eye, BlackBerry's gone. Kodak is declaring bankruptcy yet again. And, the world is changing, and they don't realize that it's happening so fast.
Right. So I would say if you're a business leader or a technology leader and you're trying to figure out AI and trying to figure out, is this really going to change my business, change my world? If you're paying attention to chat interfaces and the kind of tools that individual people use, you're missing the big story. That's the tip of the iceberg that you can see above the surface of the ocean.
Right.
What's below it that is 10 times bigger than the visible portion is this thing we've talked about so many times, which is embedded AI, right? Embedding AI into business processes and into applications. That's what will change the world. And that's
where I ultimately took the conversation, that what you're seeing on the surface, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, creating pretty pictures, doing generative AI, I said, that's not really where the play is. The play is really, like you said, deep, embedded in the process, artificial intelligence. And those are the hard problems to solve.
Right.
Not giving, ChatGPT to everybody in the organization and saying, well, we're done. That's great. That's the easy stuff.
Yeah. These chat interfaces, GPT, Gemini, you pick one, Claude, they're a distraction in a way.
Yes.
Or they're a brilliant marketing decision because it's gotten everybody in the world paying attention to it.
I don't know. I go back, yes and no. I think they're getting a lot of people on board their platforms as quickly as possible, but they also think they're doing a massive disservice because in some way they're cheapening the brand. They're cheapening the capabilities of something that is truly revolutionary.
Yeah.
And they're cheapening it by, I think we mentioned it in another podcast where, OpenAI is looking at putting advertising. To me, that cheapens something that is incredibly powerful. And that's the wrong approach to be taking. Because if I'm an enterprise business guy, I don't want to open AI. They put advertisements on my chat interface. Why am I going to want to use them for? It's almost the Facebookization of AI.
Yeah, and to be honest, the reason that you and I are so bullish on the potential of AI is because we see beyond just those chat interfaces and how it gets built into applications and processes.
Right.
If all I were aware of is the chat interface, I would probably also be looking at it going, okay, interesting, but I fail to see how it's going to change things.
Right.
Where's the transformational power everyone's talking about?
And I feel like years ago, I'd have the same conversations about just statistical analysis in general. And you would explain to an org why there is a lot of value in doing analysis on your data, and I would get the same blank stares. Well, why do I need that? That's not relevant. It does nothing for me.
Right.
But you look at companies like Netflix and Amazon who have made extensive use of analytics, and they're the biggest companies in the world.
What we need is a movie, because at the end of the day,
yes,
arguably one of the things that got data science to be mainstream aware was
Brad Pitt.
Right, Moneyball, right?
Brad Pitt,
yeah,
yes.
Or Billy Bean,
Billy Bean and Brad Pitt, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's spot. Yes, absolutely.
So we need the Billy Bean of AI.
That should be us.
To star in a movie and get the popular imagination stoked about what AI can really do.
We should do that. You and me should do
All
that.
right.
We should start our own studio.
There we go. All right, you saw it here first.
The Peter and David Film
right.
Studio.
Right.
Why not? We can do it these days.
You work on the script. I'm going to go polish my acceptance speech for the Grammy Awards, and we'll be good.
I'll go for the tuxes, okay?
Yeah.
We're good.
So one of the things we want to talk about today is just there have been some developments, some recent and some not so recent. But I want to talk about like AI as a tool to help people learn, because that is really one of the superpowers of these tools. And they've gotten pretty good at it.
Oh no, they've gotten fantastic at it.
Yeah.
You know, it's these, I think, used correctly, can be some of the best educational tools ever developed for mankind.
Stunning.
Because you can have hyper-personalized education at your fingertips and access to all this information at your fingertips if done the right way.
Right. One of the ones I think you use it heavily too is Google's NotebookLM.
Yes,
which
love it.
I think is a fabulous tool.
Yes.
If anyone out there hasn't used NotebookLM, please try it. You owe it to yourself to use NotebookLM. NotebookLM stands for language model, I presume.
Yeah, I think it does, yes.
Not the best term if you're paying attention from the product management department at Google, but it's okay because it's a phenomenal tool.
If you sit and you use it, and the interface is a little clunky, but that said, it's amazing.
Yeah. So anyone who hasn't looked at it, I'll give you the brief version of what it does. You go out, you go to NotebookLM, and you can upload materials, PDFs, documents, etc., or you can point to websites, you can point to other sources of data, and it goes and effectively builds an index behind the scenes. It reads all the content that you're uploading, and then you can have an interactive chat conversation with NotebookLM and ask questions about those documents. But then they got a little smarter, and they started suggesting things. So it will suggest questions, and you can say, "Oh, good question, ask that one."
Right.
Or it even will come up and say, "Well, would you like me to give you a summary or an overview or a Q&A document or a major points document, etc., a briefing document?"
Oh, I love that.
And then what's the one we like? The
podcast.
The podcast.
Oh, I love the podcast. I took a
300-page job, though.
Well, not yet. We'll take our book and we can put it out there. I took a 300-page book on statistical analysis, and I said, create a podcast out of this. It did.
And the other day tried one where it actually creates a video. Have you seen that?
No, I didn't see it.
Yes.
Oh, wait, no, you showed me that. That was amazing, actually.
I had
that was incredible.
I had to create a short overview video.
Yes,
and
I saw that.
It actually created graphics to explain the concepts in the video. That blew my mind.
So, it blew me away what you showed me what you did.
Right. So, obviously, it's not going to take the place of studying the material in depth if you really need to know it. But when you and I are trying to consume, say, research papers that have been published around AI, so many of them come out, and they're often very long, very technical.
Yes.
And just throwing them into into NotebookLM and asking for the basics, and then when you see something and say, well, how did this work? Or what kind of data did they test this on, et cetera? And it will generate the answers based on that.
It makes it so much easier. Given, like you said, some of these papers are just 100 pages of dense math.
Right.
I'm sorry, you can't digest that in a day.
Right.
It makes it so much simpler.
There's another service that I also use sometimes in conjunction with NotebookLM, because one of the challenges with NotebookLM is it's sort of, I'll say, bring your own content, right? Like it starts as an empty container, and you have to supply the documents you want to learn from. So there's another service out there, and I have to look at my notebook because I always get the name of it wrong, but it's called Elicit.AI.
Elicit.AI, I saw that actually.
It's a great tool. Yeah. It uses large language models to help you find published research papers on a topic of your choice. So rather than a traditional keyword search or index search,
interesting.
You can write a prompt saying, I want to learn about this, and it will go out and it'll help you find those papers.
Oh, interesting, actually.
I use Elicit in partnership with NotebookLM, where I use Elicit to go and figure out what papers I care about, and then I upload those papers into NotebookLM to go deep on them.
Oh, interesting, actually. That was different than I thought. I made an assumption, obviously wrong, that it was curating a lot of these papers and making sure that they were, up-to-date papers and not things that had been pulled. I didn't realize that's what it does. It's actually brilliant.
It's really powerful. And if you just have a few questions on a paper, you can actually ask those directly in Elicit.
Yeah.
But if you really want to go deep and you want to combine multiple papers to say, tell me what's new in this field, for example, that's where I like to use NotebookLM.
Interesting. So now, we're embarking upon potentially a whole new way of educating students just in general. We are embarking. It is this is going to be the norm. No doubt. I have no doubt about that. Just having really personalized education. Because I remember I pulled up the Google Translate app the other day. I was trying to translate one language to another because I was looking at something in Italian. And I didn't remember, so I wanted to take a picture, do it. Pops up with, "Do you want to learn Italian, Peter?" We can actually sit and we can basically be a tutor to me. I'm like, where'd this come from?
That's amazing.
And it was a new feature they had just added. This is brilliant. I wish I would have seen this a month ago.
Is this where I should ask you? I need to stop and ask you. You've got The Godfather on your shirt. Marlon Brando right there.
Of course, absolutely. So you're bringing out the Italian in me.
All right.
Yes,
I like it.
Hence the shirt and I'm sure behind me as well.
Hello, Mr. Brando. Yes. That's pretty awesome. No, it really changes things. It's funny because I think, do you remember when we were in elementary school?
Yeah.
I remember having to learn the Dewey Decimal System.
I remember the Dewey Decimal System, please.
Yes.
I know we're dating ourselves a bit over here, but yes, I remember that.
But the point that was interesting is we learned it and we didn't really use it much.
Right.
And I met someone years later who was a library science professor, and they were explaining to me how realistically students, at least in the United States, very rarely know how to do proper research. We have these tools available to us, and people just don't know how to use them.
It was never taught.
Right. And I think, to me, now, instead of teaching people the Dewey Decimal System, students really would be well served by learning how to use modern research tools, AI-powered research tools, but using them to figure out how to do their own research.
I agree, and not as a shortcut to do your homework, which is what which is always the fear. You're going to give these tools to students, and they're just going to basically use it as a, to facilitate doing their homework, and they're not actually going to learn.
Right.
So I think that caution has to be there. You have to make sure that you use these tools in the right way to get the most out of them and maximize their education. Because, it's funny. I look at generation. I look at my kids who had access to the web and they have massive amounts of information available to them, things that I wish I had when I was a child.
Right.
If you're a naturally just very curious individual, this would have been, for me, when I used to go to the library and live in the library when I was a kid, I'd have all this information at my fingertips. God knows what I would have, created. Probably not in a good way. But now all these tools are available, and having access to this information, having be able to explain to you, to me, is just absolutely incredible.
It is incredible. And when I was a kid, we had the Encyclopedia Britannica on the shelves in my parents' study.
Yep.
And every year they came out with a book, an issue that was like the updated articles for that year. But that was once a year, and it was subject to what was judged worthy of including in the annual update.
Right, exactly. It was their decision to put that in there.
Right. Right. So we've had this knowledge at our fingertips, and I really do think that learning to use AI to learn and to do research is a huge skill. And I like your distinction, which is use it to learn. Don't use it to generate your book report, your essay, your term paper, et cetera.
But go back to what you said earlier, and I know you and I riff on this all the time. When I lost my thought now. Save me for a second here. I lost my thought. Where we're going to go with this. This is the first.
It must have been brilliant.
It was a brilliant idea.
Oh,
It's the first. Oh my God, it was so good. I forgot all about it.
All right. It'll come back to you. Stop me when it comes back.
It'll come back to me when it comes back to me, yes. And I'm sure it'll come back in another minute from now.
Well, so I was going to also mention that there's other learning tools out there.
Right.
Right. GPT has some learning tools.
Yes, they do.
That I haven't used them very much, but I did test out. It will generate quizzes and Q&A documents and briefing documents on a topic.
Right.
But it feels like Google has really been pushing this particularly hard because they came out with something new called guided learning in the Gemini app.
Yeah, I saw that actually, yes.
What's different about that from NotebookLM, it's probably less useful if you want to go very deep on highly complex topics.
Right.
But what I like about it is you don't have to supply your content. What's ingenious is if you think about Google, what they do is they've indexed most of the web for their search engine. So when you say, teach me about this topic, teach me about reading an annual report, they actually retrieve data that they already have stored in their index.
Oh, right, yes.
And use AI to build a course. And what I really like about it, where NotebookLM, you have to ask the questions. I mean, you can say something like, give me a, top 10 most important things, but then at some point you have to think and you have to ask good questions. This turns it into more of a lesson plan.
Right.
And it gives you this very guided, okay, if you want to know a little bit, read these 4 things. If you want to know more, here's 5 more lessons we're going to give you.
Right.
And it really comes out with like a structured way to learn.
That's fascinating.
Which I like.
Oh, I love that though. But I say, it came back to me what we were actually going to talk about. But I feel like there's another set of skills that needs to go along with this.
Okay.
To get the most out of it. And it goes back to what we had said, critical thinking skills.
Not typing.
Not typing.
Okay.
It's helpful, but no, you're not that. It's the critical thinking. It's the being able to ask the right questions. It's being able to judge the content that's being put in front of you.
Yeah.
It's, those types of skills need to be taught. And I feel like, that these tools are great. You'll, help you educate, learn any topic you want. But, and the big but, and you said it, think is still critical.
Yes.
And you have to learn how to think. And that's not something I feel like an application is going to teach you.
No, although I wonder if AI could help you develop those critical thinking skills by challenging you, by
I guess, yes,
helping you understand like what questions should I ask. I should try it. Be like, hey, I am an argumentative history professor. What would you ask me about this
actually.
paper?
We should
How
try
would you
it.
Challenge me.
We should try. I've never tried that. We should actually try that.
Because one of the things I have done that has been really effective is asking large language models before a presentation. I'll upload the slides I'm about to present.
Yes.
And I'll say, this is the audience. Give me the questions I should expect and give me the most likely objections or concerns that they're going to raise.
I've done things, not exactly, but I've done similar things like that as well.
Yeah.
And I find that's very helpful. Let me ask a different question. What do you think this means for teachers? Loaded question there. Because I don't want,
Yeah, I don't even know what it means for teachers. What I do know is this. What it means for teachers is teachers have to master this stuff too. Because if a teacher, and look, in 2025, for a teacher to say, no AI should be used at all in my course, I can forgive that. I don't think it's the best long-term strategy, but this is changing rapidly enough. It's new enough. I'm okay with it.
Right.
In 2020, fast forward a year, in late 2026, if a teacher says no AI whatsoever, I would consider that to be a very poorly informed stance.
Yes, right? I agree.
So I think teachers need to, I hate to say this because I don't want to add to their workload, but they need to understand this and they need to give their students guidance on what is an appropriate and beneficial way for a student to use AI versus what is a lazy and ultimately harmful way to use it.
And you think they need to teach the students maybe a different set of skills to get the maximum value out of this?
I had an English teacher in high school, junior high school, actually, Mr. Stoller, one of my favorite teachers. And he was known as a stickler, a hard grader. Yep. And he was very challenging. But one of the things he did was he forced us to learn soup to nuts the entire research paper process. Right. We had to turn in every 2 days, we had to turn in our index cards with our bibliography cards and our note cards and everything. But what I realized, it was an English course, but what he actually taught us was how to do research.
But it
was so valuable.
And I feel like that skill's fallen away in the current generation. I feel like now, mostly we're teaching facts and teaching to the test and not teaching fundamental thinking skills.
Right.
And I know we're going off on the little bit of philosophy on reading,
topics.
but these are important topics. And I guess the question is, now that you have this powerful tool that can really augment you as a teacher, how do you use it to get the most out of it?
Right.
How do you help your students learn even more, faster? And since, if you're teaching 30 kids or 20 kids, you can't personalize it for each individual, but now you can.
Yeah, that's true. And in fact, I think if I were a teacher, and easy to say because I'm not, so I can't possibly understand all the challenges and constraints they have, but I can see how powerful it would be to basically tell a classroom full of kids, hey, here's the base information you all need to have, but each of you will be curious about, will have your attention piqued by a different aspect of this, so go dive into it. Use AI to go learn it, and then come back and tell us, like, what did you dive into? What did you learn more about than the baseline material that we shared?
Right. Now, I want to segue into something else, because you and I know as well, we've talked about this often. In order to get the most out of a model, you have to prompt it the right way.
Yes.
Now, I would think minimally, you'd want to teach your students how to correctly prompt the model so they can, in fact, go learn and maybe give them some sample prompts. We talk about it. A 3-word prompt is not a prompt. That's nothing. That is not going to tell anybody anything. It's not going to get you where you want to be. You have to be smart about how you prompt these. Absurdly, remember, think these models have literally trillions and trillions of tokens. They're trained with trillions and trillions of tokens. So you need to give it some guidance, and the way you give it guidance is to prompt it properly.
Yeah, and we might be a little bit of a broken record on this, because we do say all the time, like, if it's a 1-sentence prompt or a 3-word prompt, you're not going to get what you want, or maybe you will, but it's a little bit of a crapshoot whether you're going to get something. But I think, should we go into a little bit of detail, like what are some of the things that we think are best practices, if you want to call them that?
Oh, no, absolutely. I think, and whatever, these are general best practices. They are different for different models. They're general, but they should work across the models. But remember, every model responds differently.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. You will find, if you spend more than 5 seconds looking, you can find a dozen articles on, here's my super prompt, use this for everything.
I know.
That's a terrible idea.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Your prompt should be, number one, should be tailored to what you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely.
And number two is, different prompts will work differently with different models. And there is, I hate to say it, but you have to do a little bit of homework. You have to understand how to make a prompt that works with the particular model you're using.
Right.
And by the way, most people don't know this, but there are prompting guides written for each release of a model.
Yes, the providers themselves provide the prompting guides to get the most out of the model and tell you how to best structure a prompt. And most people never read them. You should, because there's a lot of great information in them.
They're like 3 to 5 pages long. They're not big.
No, but they're easy. And it's not like you have to write a 3 to 5 page prompt every time, but you need some basic guidance that really gives you the most accurate answer that you're looking for.
Yeah. So, but having said that, so on one hand, we're saying spend some time, learn to prompt the model you like, read the prompting guide, develop sort of a skill set how you prompt that model effectively. But on the other hand, would you say that therefore someone should only ever use that model, or would you say people should use a mixture of different models?
Oh, like you and I do. I use a mixture of different models. I use 4 different models, and a lot of it depends on you. I guess you learn this over time. Which one responds the best to the type of problem that you're trying to solve? Because they've all been trained very differently on different corpuses of information. They've been fine-tuned very differently. So some are great at writing, some are great at math, and some are, look at Claude, for instance, is very good at generating code because it has a large corpus of code that has been validated, made sure it was high-quality code that is trained into the model. So it's different, whereas an OpenAI is trained on a lot of internet across the entire web, so it's a good general purpose model. So they have their specific domains where they work better than others.
There's also a concept that I like, although the name is a little bit ominous. It's called LLM as a judge, which makes it sound like I'm going to be sentenced based on what a model says. But what it really means is, you can use an LLM to evaluate the output of other models. And one of the things I really like to do is to ask the same question, maybe with slightly tailored prompts of 3 or 4 different models, and then feed all of those results back into one model and say, tell me where these 3 or 4 responses agree, and tell me where they disagree. Highlight the differences, highlight the things in common. And that'll help you sort of triangulate on what is reliable and what you want to go deeper on to verify.
Right. And granted, most people never do any of this. We're probably the exceptions, because we're embedded in it, but hey.
And because I think, we understand enough about what's going on in the models to know all the ways in which they can go wrong. Like the
yes.
The insidious part is the models are so confident whether they can be confidently correct or confidently incorrect.
It's unbelievable. And how many lawyers do you know that have created briefs quoting cases that are non-existent, and they were 100%,
Yes.
Convinced that they were legitimate cases.
100%. All right.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about then some specific things like as you're prompting, and I think let's start with the first one, which is not one sentence, not 3 words.
No, the first thing I always do when I'm prompting a model, especially for a complex case, is I say, what I want you to be. So if it's a law document that a contract that I'm uploading, and I want some comments on the contract, for instance, so I'll say, start with, you are a world-class corporate attorney specializing in this type of law and this type of law and this type of law. You've tried large cases across the board, yada, 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 before I actually say comment on this particular document that I've uploaded.
And you're not doing it just to flatter the model, I presume. It
No,
makes a difference.
It actually makes a huge difference statistically. If you know how the models work, it's going to trigger, or so to speak, trigger those tokens that are germane to the problem that I'm trying to solve.
So unlike saying please and thank you, saying you're a world-class legal expert actually makes a difference.
It actually makes a massive difference, yes. Otherwise, if me just saying, please validate this contract, well, it doesn't mean anything. If I say the contract is a software contract, software as a service contract, it's for a large enterprise, you're a corporate attorney, the more information I give it, the probability of me getting a response that is accurate goes way, way, way up.
Yeah. So I think your tip there, number one, is define the role the model is playing in this conversation you're about to have.
Yes.
I think I'll offer up the corollary to that, which is also define who the audience is.
Yes.
Right? Like, who are you creating this response for? Are you creating it for an expert? Are you creating it for a 5th grader?
Right.
Et cetera. And that will definitely shape the way the output.
No, that's actually an important point. You're absolutely correct. And as part of the output, and some models support this natively, like Claude supports it natively. What do you want the output to look like? How do you want the language to come out? Do you want it written as if you're a 6th grader, or do you want it written as a 40-year corporate attorney?
Right. If you're in like deep thinking mode, I think it will come back and ask clarifying questions before it processes the
before it processes it. And there's also an option that says, output type, formal, informal, research, or whatever. There's a whole bunch of different types, and based on what you enter, it'll change the language that it's output significantly.
And that controls what I'm going to call maybe the tone of the output. But the other thing is, you also can and often should specify the structure of the output.
No, it's a very important thing.
Do I want long form text? Do I want a table? Do I want a JSON extract? Do I want a picture? What do I want?
Exactly. Yes. You have to define all that information as part of your prompt. That's very important. What the output should look like. So very often I'll say, I want it as a letter, or I want it as a brief, or I want it as, some document with this type of a format, and then it'll generate that format appropriately. Or do I want an HTML document output that I could then go execute, or whatever it may be.
So all of this is before we've even gotten to actually what the prompt is, right? Because now you're saying, as part of the prompt, you're saying, who are you, the model, going to be?
Right.
Who's the audience? What kind of tone and structure of output I want?
Right.
And then you finally...
Then you get to the problem.
Then you get to the actual request. What are you asking it to do? So how do you think about structuring that?
Well, then I put the request, and then generally when I put the request, I put a lot of information in there.
Yeah.
I mean a lot of information. I think I've told you and I have spoken about our prompts together before. It's not uncommon if we have a 1-page description of the problem I'm trying to solve.
Yeah.
On top of everything else that we've just added into the model.
Right.
What you look, what kind of role you are, the output, everything else, background information, any other ancillary information I might have added. But then I do a deep, deep, deep description of the problem.
Yes. And what do you put in that description? Like
everything I could possibly think of that I think is going to give me an output.
Constraints and what makes a good answer.
Absolutely, yes. All the above, yes. What makes a good, yes, please. And again, it depends on the problem I'm trying to solve, but yes.
Yeah.
Generally, constraints, like I said, what makes it a good answer, what I want the output to look like, if you should go look for some additional information.
Right.
I actually go very, very, very deep trying to get the right output.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. The more, just purely mathematically, the more tokens you give it,
the better you're going to get.
The better it has as a basis for predicting
exactly
the
next output
to generate the answer. Exactly.
Absolutely.
So longer is, it sounds silly, but a longer prompt is almost always going to give you better results than a short prompt.
99 times out of 100.
Yeah.
And if it's the 100th, it's pure luck that you actually got something that was semi-intelligent.
Right.
But otherwise, and I think this skill needs to be taught. I mean, look, virtually everybody should become a prompt engineer.
Right.
So if you're a student, you should become a prompt engineer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those skills need to be taught.
Absolutely.
Look, I think everybody in an organization should become a prompt engineer. You need to know how to craft these prompts and not just hire people to do this for you.
To some degree or another, I think you're right. I mean, I think I made a joke in one of our other podcast episodes about we don't hire people to be typists anymore to type our emails, and you shouldn't hire someone to create your prompts for you. That's it's becoming, I think, rapidly becoming a fundamental skill that everyone needs to have.
I agree.
Well, let's talk about examples and context. That's the other aspect of a prompt that we haven't talked about, which is how do we actually get better results by supplying either the context you want the prompt to pay attention to draw the answers from, or examples of good work, good types of
No, I think that's very important, actually. So, and very often, and again, it depends what I'm doing. So let's say I was trying to generate a software contract, or just, I don't know, a contract in general. And I could say, go generate a contract. And I could go say, generate a software contract.
Right.
I have no idea what I'm going to get out of that.
Right.
So, but if I have an example of something that I've used in the past or something that I like, the terms in the contract, I will upload it into the model.
Yeah.
I will say, use this contract as a guide, generate with the following differences. These are my constraints. This is what I'm tweaking in this contract. These are variations. This is why it's different. This is why it's the same, before I actually say, okay, now go.
Yeah. Especially I find if you're using the model to either expand text, so to turn some bullet points into, let's say, an email, a formal email, or to condense text to take a chunk of a meeting transcript and pull out some bullet points or some task assignments. Right. Those are areas where if you can supply 2 or 3 really good example pairs, here's the raw input, here's the output. If you can give the model 2 or 3 manually curated examples where hey, this is a good example of how I want it to behave. Right. Even if the content in the examples is completely different than the content you're then giving it for the prompt, you'll get so much better results.
You get so much better results back.
Yeah. And that's if you hear people talking about few shot learning, that's the example. It's few shot is I'm giving a couple of examples to learn from as part of the prompt.
Right. And I think it's important, again, going back to how these models actually work, you're giving it a couple of examples, but that stays in the context window so we can refer to that.
Yeah.
As it's actually generating an output.
Yeah.
And that's all super important. But let's kind of wrap this back up to learning and teaching students in school.
Okay. But I want to one more little aspect of prompt engineering, if you will. And this is my pet peeve. So if anyone from any of the major tools is out there, here's what I really hate. Whether you're on the web or using the desktop version, app versions, when you hit enter, it submits the prompt. That is counterintuitive because I want to write many paragraphs. So what I think you should always do is you should just pick a place that you're always going to write your prompts. It could be a Google Doc, it could be a Word doc, it could be an Apple Notes doc, it could be a plain text file. I don't care. Write your prompts there. Work on your prompt outside of the large language model tool. And when you're working on it, structure it.
Right.
I think it's a fantastic idea to put XML tags in it.
Yes,
so
I agree.
Put in brackets, put something like role in brackets, and then say you are a legal expert, and then put bracket / role to say that's the end of the role section, and create sections in this prompt.
That's very helpful.
For the role, the task, the constraints, the examples, whatever you have. You can make up the terms.
Right.
But clearly delineate the different parts of your
prompt. It goes a long way, and it's actually great advice that I never follow myself, but it's actually really good advice to follow.
And my pro tip is put them in one document so that over time you have a place where you have your original prompts and you paste in examples of the results you get from those prompts. So it becomes like a lab notebook where you can see
that's a great
what
idea.
Worked, what didn't work, what kind of changes you had to make. That'll help build that muscle memory.
No, that's actually a great idea. And I usually, sometimes I follow that. I will sit and I will write them up in a document, especially if they're particularly long. Generally, I find myself going into the chat interface. What I've gotten really good at, instead of hitting enter, hitting Command Enter on my Mac to do, which drives me absolutely insane because I just want to hit enter to go to the next paragraph.
Exactly.
And hit Command Enter to enter it. But my hands have just naturally, I now do that all the time.
And the other ninja tip, and I know you do this too, is you can actually use a large language model to improve your prompt.
Oh, 100%.
So instead of answering the prompt, you can say, here's a prompt.
Yes.
What can I do to make this better?
Yes.
Or reformat this as a better performing prompt.
You'd be crazy not to. I mean, that's just, I don't know, to me, it's common sense.
And of course, because we're a community of nerds. That has a name too. It's meta-prompting.
Meta-prompting,
Yep.
yes.
I like
But it's true. It's actually a great way to do it. And most people don't do that. I remember I said that at a conference. I was writing a prompt early in the morning, and I then announced, I took this prompt, I put it into another language model and said, can you make this prompt much better so I can actually do what I wanted to do? And people in the audience were like, oh my God, I never thought of that.
Right.
I'm like, but that's just natural. Why would you not do that?
There's another one that I haven't experimented with much, but I know some people believe in it very strongly, which is never accept the first answer. So sometimes you want to respond to the output with a specific instruction, like make this longer, make it more explicit,
Right.
add some examples, whatever you're going to say. Other times I know people who just say, good, but make it better. And they challenge the model to like try again.
Right, exactly. And
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not sure there's something to get. That, to me, that's just plain statistics.
But the thought behind it, I do appreciate, which is don't automatically accept the first answer. If you think the answer could be better,
Right.
say how it could be better and ask the model to generate a new version of the answer with your input.
Yeah,
and that
fair enough.
does work.
That does work. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Interesting. I never would have done that, but interesting.
All right. So there's our pro tips for
the day today, yes, on how to prompt a model.
And look, I think you can find lots of articles. What I say to everyone who asks me is, don't fall into the trap of thinking there is one meta prompt, one prompt framework that you should always use. There is no magic prompt.
There's not.
And I can't tell you how many times I see articles coming across my newsfeed with like, use this magic prompt for all of your large language model prompts and life will be great. That's not a good idea.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that just attract clicks and really nothing else.
Right.
You got to think.
Right.
My favorite word of the day, well, word in general, think.
Yeah. So it's actually good because the other thing that these models do that I like, and I know you mentioned it earlier too, is like thinking mode where so my favorite also is for a complex prompt, you say something like show your work, or show your reasoning.
Yeah, you can do that.
And that's chain of thought reasoning. And the models actually do a better job if they have to stop and figure out step by step what they're going to do.
They do. And then a lot of the models will go down a large number of paths before they choose the one that is the most, they think it will be the most valid.
Right. Interesting.
So they can choose literally hundreds of different paths, especially when they're solving mathematical problems. And then what they'll do is they'll converge on a single solution at some point in time. So they effectively look like they're thinking.
Right. Interesting. I like that. The last one I was reading about the other day, where I thought at first I was like, oh, it's a gimmick. But then I tried it out and I was like, okay, it does work, which is, you and I are always, we're looking at what model we use, right? Mm-hmm. You use the pull down to select which version of the model, what parameter size you want, right? And I think we talked once before about how the bigger model's not always better, right? Sometimes,
no, very often not.
But there are some interesting sort of cheat codes to like force a model to use certain things like deep research or thinking. If you use certain phrases like think hard about this or think deeply, you can trigger the model to go into more of a deep thinking mode or use a more sophisticated model.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. And it's especially relevant on OpenAI because OpenAI uses a different type of architecture. Right. Like this mixture of expert models, is dense models. They use what's called a routing architecture. And depending on your question, it will route it to either one of the larger, more complex models or one of the simple, quick models.
Okay.
But you don't have control over that. But if you say specifically, do deep thinking, do research, or do whatever, it'll actually go use the more sophisticated, larger models.
That's really
so you have some level of control over it.
So if you don't want to have to pick the model manually and tell it what to use, you use one of these magic phrases, if you will.
That triggers it for you and allows you to go to a deep thinking mode. But you're right, and a lot of these models don't do that. But yes, making it do deep thinking generally, even though it's going to take longer to get a response, might be more costly in terms of token usage, you're going to get a more accurate answer.
Okay. All right. Good. So, all right. So you convinced me, right, that like this is it's a skill.
It is.
But it's not a job.
It's not a job. It is definitely a skill.
Right.
And I can make a really, really, really good argument that most schools, or all schools, starting in grammar, because they're using them, all the way through college, on how to properly prompt a model. And it should be like a semester-long class on how do you prompt a model and show people how you get better results out of prompting properly as opposed to 2 words.
And I think the other skill, I'm going to borrow what you said, right, around critical thinking would be how do you evaluate the responses of a model to
100%.
decide if you think it's accurate?
Right. I love that. And I think that's absolutely 100% true. Yes.
Yeah.
That would be.
I was talking to someone the other day, and this made me sad. It was that they were saying that their kid is in high school and they don't use a model to do their homework. They're writing it the old-fashioned way, the way we always write. But what they have started doing, and this makes me so sad that we have to do this, they started taking their completely human-generated prose, feeding it into an AI detector.
Yeah.
And those AI detectors, the majority of them are pretty bad.
They're really bad.
I
know.
False positives.
A lot
so
of
many
false positives. I know.
And then they get all the false positives, and then they go and they manually rewrite the parts that tripped the AI detector.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, that's terrible because what they submit at the end of the day is a little bit less authentic than what they actually wrote. Yeah,
because they're playing a game.
No, because they're playing the game to try to avoid getting. Inaccurately flagged for.
And they, like you said, they generate a ton of false positives. Those things, they're far from accurate.
Yeah.
And the better the models get.
As someone who has been using an M dash for 40 years,
right? Exactly.
I'm deeply offended that the M dash has become like
I know, and I use it all the time too, and it drives me crazy that it would actually even flag that. Right. But it does. It looks for generated.
If you start flagging Oxford commas, that is war. I will defend my right to use the Oxford comma till the bitter end.
It's funny because that's another thing I've always used. I didn't know it was called that until you.
Yep, the Oxford comma. And thank God the Oxford comma has not been identified as an indicator of AI usage, or I would be in deep trouble.
Yes, I know, because I use it too all the time. No, it's funny you should say that. Well, it's just, I don't know. There's a certain level of skills that I think need to be taught. Yeah. That are unfortunately not being taught.
Right.
And I think these, again, go back to these models are powerful. They're incredible learning tools, but you need to be taught how to use them effectively. And I think that's something that teachers really need to embrace.
Yeah. But so do corporations. Like, this is not.
100%.
Yes, we should learn this as students in the school system. But like, if you're in a company today, more than anything else, I would say learn to write a really good prompt. I mean, if you're in IT or you have a fairly detailed role where you might be creating AI agents or embedded systems, that's a different set of skills. But if you're a casual user who's using AI as sort of an accelerator to do your job, figure out prompting. Like,
I know.
Learn it and test it. And my rule of thumb is, if you feel like it's too easy, if you feel like it's easy and saves you time, you're doing it wrong. If it feels like hard work, you're doing it right.
But don't the model providers in some way facilitate this ease of?
Yes.
They make, I could just type in a couple words and wham, all magic is going to occur.
Right.
You know, it's easy. They don't make it hard, which I think in some respects is really bad.
It's the way with every modern convenience, right? Like, when it's sold to us, we get sold on the ease of use, the convenience. They don't tell you how hard it is to assemble or how hard it is to learn to use it.
No, they don't. And I think they're doing a massive disservice to the people that are buying these models.
Right.
Because they would get much more use out of them and be much more effective. And we wouldn't see reports from MIT saying 95% of projects fail and CFOs are seeing no value.
And I really do mean it. If using an AI model feels like hard work, that's a good sign. That means you're probably putting thought and rigor into how you use it.
Right.
If it feels too easy, then that's a bad sign. Not that even if it's hard work, it will save you some time.
Right.
Or maybe a different way. It's less about time saving to me. It will allow me, it goes back to what you said, it allows me to ask questions. It allows me to learn things that I wouldn't have been able to easily learn before.
Right. Well,
but it's hard work to do it.
Well, nobody wants to put the work in. And look, like there was something we had done an earlier podcast on AI slop.
Yeah.
Don't generate AI slop.
Don't generate.
Be
AI
smart
slop.
and do things the right way and use the right prompts and make it hard. Well, it should be hard, and you'll get good results.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, I think no matter where you are in your life journey too, student, college student, early stage professional, late stage professional,
learn.
Using it just for personal projects. You really do need to spend a little time figuring out how to write a good prompt.
1000%.
And as with so many things in life, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it.
Yeah, I know. I could comment on it a lot, but I won't.
So, yeah.
I'll stop with that.
Excellent. What else? Is that it? For
that was really it. But I think that was good. I mean, look.
Did we keep it real or did we wax philosophical?
No, I think we kept it real. I think this was much more real than most of the times where a little philosophy here and there. But there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I'd like to mix it up and talk about some technical things, some
Right.
practical tips, and some more philosophical and
Because there are
strategic things.
And there are some really deep, philosophical questions around using these things the right way, obviously. And it's just natural that we would speak about some of those things. And I think even going back to teachers and these tools, it's not going to eliminate the need for a teacher, I think, ever. There's enormous value of having those interpersonal relationships and learning. It's just there are ways you learn with other people that you're not going to learn through these tools. And I don't want to say, hey, you know what? They're great tools for learning, therefore we don't need teachers anymore. That's the worst message you could take away from it.
Right.
I think it'll enhance teaching done well. I think students can learn better and potentially faster than they otherwise would have. But that back and forth, those interpersonal relationships, those communications between student and teacher, that should never go away. That's way, way, way too important to give you that full well-rounded education.
Did calculators replace math teachers?
No, they did not.
Did word processors replace English professors?
But word processors weren't writing a term paper for you.
True. But I think the point that you're getting to, though, is it's just a tool and it can't replace a great teacher.
And back to Peter saying it a day, the fool with the tool is still a fool.
Sitting as your phrase. All right. See, we're going to have a sound effect every time.
Yes, every time I say that. Yes.
Producer Pete, we need a sound effect.
Working on it now.
Okay, we're working on it. Good. No, I thought of one more as we were talking about tools. I just wanted to share my other personal tip, and I think you use this too.
Yep.
I love when I read things. I like to highlight what I read.
Yep.
And for years now, I've been using a tool called Readwise, which is there is a subscription. It's pretty cheap. It's the most valuable thing I subscribe to. Yes. On any different platform, on my Kindle and a web browser, wherever I am, I can highlight passages of text. They all get stored for me. But what I used to do is go through and have to search and navigate through the Readwise web interface and find the quotes. Not anymore, because Readwise has an MCP server.
Yep.
I connected it, in this case, to Claude.
The same thing.
2 seconds to do. And now in Claude, I can say, what highlights do I have about responsible AI? Or what highlights do I have about the role of AI in learning? And the beautiful thing is it's not a search anymore.
No.
It's an LLM-powered request.
Yes.
So it will actually go out and interpret my words, interpret the words of the highlights I've saved, and find semantic matches, even if they've got 0 words in common with what I'm asking about.
Right, exactly.
It's amazing.
Oh, I use it all the time.
Yeah.
I use Readwise every single day. Because I sit there like you do, and I'm reading these articles, these very dense articles, whatever I'm reading, and highlight. I mean, it is the one tool that I use every single day.
And every month, I have less and less confidence in my ability to retain what I read.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Like, this is a crutch. It's a good crutch. I love it.
Where are we? No, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Producer Pete asked us a few times today what the date was. So
exactly. I don't remember.
We all have the same
problems.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
He may or may not have asked us the date.
No.
Yeah. So I hope this was useful to everyone. Just talking a little bit about prompting, about good technique, about how important it is to learn it. If anyone wants to share their ideas of great prompts, any killer tips or techniques that we didn't talk about, I'm always up for learning.
I'm always up for things. And I mean, if anybody has any suggestions, send them our way, please. We'd love to hear from everybody.
Yeah. And again, thanks to the folks at Podcast Central. It's really nice to be able to sit here in a proper studio and be talking to each other without a internet lag in between us.
I got to tell you, this is the way we should do it all the time now. There's nothing better than this.
We're spoiled now.
I'm very spoiled now, yes.
Yep. Well, next time, I apologize, but next time I will make sure that your bowl of M&Ms sorted by color is sitting in front of you.
You know, you got it wrong. I didn't get my bowl of M&Ms. Makeup wasn't outside.
Does that mean I'm fired?
You're fired.
You're taking over, David?
You're fired.
That was my release?
I mean, seriously.
You don't get off that easy, Producer Pete. We need you. We need you. Peter, until next time.
David, a pleasure, as always.
Thanks for joining us on Call Me Data.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. You have a great day.
Bye-bye. Thanks for watching Call Me Data. If you enjoyed our podcast, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And make sure to stay up to date with us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.